Before this interview, there was a concrete case. In February 2012, an 18-year-old coffee stand worker named Samantha was taken from Anchorage. Investigators followed ransom activity across the country, and in March they arrested Israel Keys. A federal indictment later charged him in connection with her kidnapping and killing. But when agents sat across from him, they were not only dealing with one file. He was hinting at other victims, other states, and information he would release only if the room moved on his terms. That is why this interview feels different. The question is not just whether he will talk. It is whether investigators can turn his need for control into names, places, and answers before everything becomes public. The first pressure point comes right after a failed courtroom escape.
Why are they afraid I'd actually get away? Well, that would be embarrassing for them, I guess.
No, it's. I don't think that they were looking at it from that perspective.
You know, lawyers just don't like excitement. That's all it is.
Well, it's more of a understanding that they thought we were kind of working towards a goal, and they're working on trying to keeping Vermont on board and doing everything.
I would have sent them an anonymous letter.
Yeah. And so they're kind of wondering where we're at with that. Where are we at with what's changed since yesterday?
More.
Yeah.
And what's changed for you, though?
Nothing. Possibly additional charges. Well, I don't understand why it surprises me that they would take that personally at all. It really didn't have anything to do with them.
Well, they didn't. I didn't interpret it as though they took it personally. They're very concerned and very frustrated because I think in their mind we had a business relationship set up here, and they worked very hard to kind of lay out their position and the things that they thought that they could potentially do that would be in your interest based on the information you've provided. And, so they felt like we had a business relationship, and they felt like the actions that you took yesterday really kind of threw that out the window. And I gotta be honest, it kind of looked that way from our perspective too.
Oh, I disagree. I mean, honestly, and I know we can't go too far back into some of the original interviews that I had with them, but by their own words yesterday in their opening statement to the judge in court, I feel like they have not been honest with me about what my bottom line has been throughout all this, and that's what I wanted to talk to them about. So I'm not going to take it out on you guys, but I do have some serious issues right now. There's some sort of obvious communication breakdown over the entirety of this whole situation, and it's easy to sit there and say on the recording, we're not here to talk about the Koenig case, but the fact of the matter is that they're the same people that I talked to about that originally. So you understand my position on that. So I understand I'm not allowed to talk to that, and I respected their wishes about not talking to them about that either without my attorney present, but I have some serious frustrations right now regarding matters related to that. So that's as far as that's concerned, and I don't think it's something that can't be worked out. I've been trying to work it out from my end, but apparently there's only so much I can do. So that's what I wanted to speak to them about, not in a matter of any specifics regarding any other case, just like general topics. Like I say, it's the topics that were discussed in open court yesterday. So it's that's a frustration to me right now that they won't talk to me about those topics, but it's okay to talk about it in open court. That's I'm not buying that, so that's okay.
Notice the frame. Nobody in the room is pretending this is a normal apology. The investigators keep him talking by treating the conversation like a negotiation because that is the only way to keep him at the table.
For anybody to accept, but especially them, I would imagine that didn't really have anything to do with our arrangement.
And from my
perspective,
yeah.
So
okay, but I don't think it's something that they can't work past. They've worked through some pretty miracle stuff right now. So I think this is something they can probably, they want some assurance that we're going to be able to go back down that same road that we were on. And we've made a major turn.
I don't imagine this will stay strictly between you and me and people in this room, but I believe the people in this room know me well enough now to know that when I say what happened yesterday has nothing to do with our arrangement, like I said, it's not some part of some grand scheme. I already know how this all ends for me. So,
well, I mean, it's good. I think that we can hear that from you. That was an opportunity that happened there, and
right, that's what it was.
Some of the things that they're concerned about and that they're getting questioned about by, like Vermont, for example, because like Jeff said, we know that they had a long conference call with Vermont today trying to explain what happened and answer questions in Vermont. We saw a draft version of the letter, and it was everything you asked for. I mean, it truly was. And I think they're trying to answer some pretty tough questions from Vermont right now about basically what the...
Right, but I mean, even still, from their perspective, I mean, come on, let's face it. Yeah, what happened yesterday? Ooh, I'm a bad guy. I tried to escape, but let's be honest. Nobody really thought I was a good guy before that, so... It's not like being escaping suddenly makes me untrustworthy. I was kind of untrustworthy before that, so...
At least you have the perspective of, kind of unrealistic perspective.
Yeah, I'm not, and obviously, I think you probably especially know that I'm not going to get another opportunity like that, at least not within my lifetime. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell them. All I can say is that, I mean, nothing's changed as far as my day-to-day, my reality, it's still the same.
You still envision a way where we can get to meet both of our goals, where we can get what we want out of this?
I think so, that, like I say, after yesterday, I had some frustrations of my own, so that was kind of the catalyst,
So what you're saying is there's a couple things you need cleared up from them.
I do, yeah, and and honestly, like we've talked about before, like all this other stuff, that's like little bargaining chips, whatever you want to call it, that is all one thing, but everybody knows what my bottom line concern is in all this, that I wanted this all wrapped up as quickly as possible. And like I said, it was in open court yesterday, and it's obviously not happening. So that's, it's not that, like I said, it's not that I'm pointing the finger.
That is the first clear theme. He calls the information bargaining chips. The detectives need locations, names, and proof. He wants speed, silence, and control over what becomes public.
It's a great amount of progress where we are, and I think it's going to help us move the ball forward. Just to sort of reiterate, they basically said and agreed that they know it's important to you to sort of avoid media attention, you don't want law enforcement identifying you in connection with the courier matter, that they're prepared to do, and they're prepared to continue cooperating, and in exchange, you're agreeing to be truthful about other crimes and other bodies, and in here they specifically mention the name of the victim in New York.
Right, they want to know.
Yeah. So, as it says, I'm
kind of close to them.
And I have a conference call tomorrow with them, and I'd like to be able to tell them that you're continuing to cooperate and provide that.
I do want to continue to cooperate. I'm having some issues as far as somewhat of an unrealistic expectation on my part, but I was thinking there might be a way to disclose all this information to you, to the FBI, and to somehow ensure that we could work out some sort of agreement that, I give you all the answers on these cases, and families get closure, and you find as many of them as possible, and in return for that, I don't plan on being around a whole lot longer, but a really big concern to me is, my kid's going to be around. I don't want her to type my name in the computer and have it pop up I already know stuff's going to come up. I know that, but I just trying to minimize that at this point, I guess. Is what I was hoping to do, and apparently it's going to be really difficult to get that assurance. So I'm trying to, figure out a way we can still do that. I think there is, I have a few ideas on how to work it out, but
What are your ideas?
well, I'm not sure if they're feasible yet. I've been, talking to different people about it, from what can happen from a legal perspective. It's one thing to make assurances, and that's great. I mean, if we get some of the stuff on the table for now, it helps us deal with the problems for right now, but down the road, that's what I'm concerned about. I'm not going to be around, which is fine, but that doesn't change the fact that, just because I'm not connected with it right away, it could happen later. And so I'm trying to, I guess, maybe cover myself that way as much as possible and still get you what you need.
He uses words like closure, but listen to what sits right beside it. His concern keeps returning to publicity, reputation, and what his family might see later. That gives the room its leverage.
So, I think what I heard too is you're wanting to take responsibility. Your plan is to take responsibility if you can figure out how to do this without getting the recognition, which is kind of what's going on in Vermont.
Right. My concern, the problem is nowadays, the more stuff my name is attached to, the more likely it is that somebody's going to try to do some kind of stupid freaking TV special, or you know how it is nowadays, with all this true crime that people are obsessed with, and that's I'm not even so concerned at this point about because so far I feel like we have been able to work within the guidelines of what we both said we would. But I am concerned about that, about someone connecting the dots on this, and I don't know how, I know there's certain privacy laws, but I know that, for the most case, they're not going to apply to me. And so I know that at some point, it's pretty likely that if someone tried hard enough, they could,
Not so much, because we got a couple of things sort of working in our favor on this. One is an ongoing investigation.
Right.
And so that right there is going to limit the amount of information that's going to be released. And two, it's an ongoing federal investigation. And we play by a whole different set of rules than most of the states out there. And so media outlets don't have the same ability to come in and sort of force us, if you will, to disclose information that they might be able to get away with state and local agencies.
Right. Yeah, I can see that they would have more to go up against. But there's also, if I'm dead, then the investigation from the federal government's point of view is pretty much closed.
Not necessarily. We're going to do what we need to do to tie up the loose ends. And to the extent that we can do that with your assistance, like we've talked in the past, if we go at this as a team and we have the benefit of your information, it allows us to go hunting with a rifle instead
Right.
of a shotgun. And there may be things that we wind up having to follow up on down the road when you're no longer in a position to assist us. But
Our idea is to do this with you so that it's focused, and we won't. And it's not going to get anywhere near like it is in Vermont because we've all learned from that stuff. But the way to get it like that is for us to have to try and figure it out ourselves, and that's what we would. I mean, and you know that. You know exactly what we're faced with and what kind of publicity we're all going to be faced with, and questions that we're going to have to answer, and that these other agencies are going to be asking us. And those are the things that we're trying to avoid, knowing that you're the only one that can help us keep this to as little publicity as possible.
The strategy is patient, but it is not soft. They keep turning his fear back on him. If he will not guide them privately, the investigation may have to become public.
Because honestly, you guys, I mean, there's nothing. I'm not trying to get anything else out of this at this point. As much, I did say, I wanted to just get this all cleared up, and that way you're not digging for who knows how many years down the road, trying to connect the dots and just make it all go away. But I don't know. I just have to figure out the best way to do that to make it all go away. Make it all over.
I understand that too, and you've heard me say this many, many times. But at some point in time, your choice may be the reality. Could be that Laney and everybody else knows what you did based on what you said you did, or everybody else, including Laney, is to see the fiasco and the media frenzy that is created by law enforcement trying to figure out what speculating what you did. Because I told you, on the one trip that we looked at surrounding New York, we have 10 viable, people that are missing that we know of. Those are just the ones that are still reported that way. And so if we have to, and we know you didn't do that, but that's what we're looking at in each one of these trips is we're faced with, if you don't tell us, our options are to be public with that agency because we can't ask questions and not expect questions in return. And so we're really living up to our end of the bargain, because at this point in an investigation, if you weren't cooperating with us, this would already have been happening, and the media frenzy would be crazy with us trying to figure it out, because we do have enough information under trips, at least, to do.
That is why the pressure matters. Every trip they cannot explain creates false leads, terrified families, and a public search he says he does not want.
Well, the problem I have with talking about anything related to Washington is not playing ball with the right people, because those I'm almost positive they're not going to be federal. In case they're not federal cases.
Well, I think Kevin explained to you that.
Like different stuff.
Okay. Well, I think Kevin explained to you that the jurisdiction that we can exercise is pretty expansive, especially if it's part of a scheme.
No, I understand that, but again, this is going to be hard to talk about without getting into stuff we're not supposed to talk about. But depending on things, the way things pan out, things we've already talked about, then I may need those details of the Washington case that I would be better served to wait, that's where the route I have to go. You know what I mean?
I think I do. I'm not sure. I know we talked a little bit about.
Because there's a big difference between state and federal, it seems. And it seems like Washington might be a state that
But that's something that we can sort of start working on in the background, just so you know. I'm not asking that here now today, but that's something that usually does require cooperation between even the federal districts, even if they're state things.
So you're saying there's two districts
In Washington.
federal districts?
Yeah. So there's 2 federal districts that would probably just sort of approach with it. One in Spokane and Yakima, the main offices in the north, and then Seattle and Tacoma are the western district. So that's just dividing line. I don't know exactly where it is, but pretty much, Seattle and Tacoma are where most of the towns are. Everything.
Like Ellensburg? Or?
Yeah, I think that's Ellensburg is.
Ellensburg is west or
East. Ellensburg is sort of outside of Yakima.
You're going to need both districts. Because I don't, yeah.
Well, it's something. I mean, the good thing about Washington is we have some pretty good relationships with both U.S. attorneys there, and both countries.
No, I understand what you're saying, but that was a few years ago. So. But no, it just seems like I might end up having to talk to like state people there. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I mean the good thing is the federal people have their counterparts. Like Vermont was pretty connected with the Chittenden County folks.
Right.
We can sort of get them on board and make the transition easier, sort of move forward in their jurisdiction if that's the way you choose to go. Obviously, everyone would have to be on board anyway.
Right.
So it's useful for him to sort of give them a heads up.
And I think, Frank can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I think the sooner that they have that opportunity, the less likely you are to kind of get drugged from one jurisdiction to another because there'll already be things in place.
Yeah. No, my concern at this point is not knowing, like I say, how current things are going to pan out. The information that I still have could come in handy if I need it. And if I give it out now, I don't think I'll need it in that respect, but you never know. I don't know what's going to happen. And if I give it all out now, particularly, anything about Washington, that could seriously compromise my options, future options.
I think, Mike was going to bring that back to me at some point. Obviously, we can take this staggered approach, which I think is probably a good one, to go to different places. We're doing one at a time. But the plan that we propose to you is to do exactly that. So, like, you sort of do the New York one, we make sure we have everybody on board in the New York one, whatever jurisdictions we need to, get that information agreement in place, and then we can move on to Washington.
Right.
So Washington, basically would have the same agreement, and then, it could be an option that you could always use later down the road if you don't like the way things are going. You can ask us to simply say, hey, there's that thing in Washington that I helped you on, and you reach out to those people again and see what they're willing to do. So there is that. I mean, I get you if you don't want to kind of sort of give away cards, but I think the plan that we proposed to you is sort of like a one at a time staggered approach when we eventually get
Right.
to where we need to be going, and it doesn't result in this land just massive.
But it is going to have to be spread out.
By now, Washington is not just a location, it is leverage. He is thinking ahead to future jurisdictions, future charges, and what he might need later.
And your feeling is if you give us additional information, it's going to affect other things or not affect other things, or you're going to control over it?
Yeah, it's once I give out the information, then it's gone.
Well, let me just jump in on that, because this is getting, I should say frustrating, but I could almost say it's getting depressing, right? You know, that and maybe you feel the same way, that you have been meeting with us now about other crimes for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think it's getting kind of just downright depressing that we are not moving forward. And I don't think it's because, I'm not sure why it is. I mean, we came in here a month ago and laid out that plan that Frank Russo laid out, and you know, because we've been kind of bending over backwards from the U.S. Attorney's Office perspective of saying, look, we're going to work with you, and we're going to move the other things forward that are going to need to be moved forward for all the other crimes.
Right.
And we all kind of understand that we're going to need to move forward. And so we thought you were on the schedule of wanting to move other crimes investigations forward. We know you want to keep the media down. You don't want to charge other jurisdictions. We know those things. We took them into account, and we came up with a strategy to say, well, let's move them forward. And we really kind of busted ourselves to do that. So we're getting kind of just, like I said, I should be saying frustrated, but I'll start with just kind of depressed about that we're not moving those things forward. And so, what's your view? What's your view on that?
And the same with law enforcement. You know, this is the typical way we move forward with this type of investigation. And for us, it's frustrating, and we're doing it this way because this is the way that Israel wanted to do it. And
what's your take on our?
This isn't the way I wanted to do it.
Well, just tell us what your take is on that.
Well, my take is, you know, I've said this before, even though we may at this point all want the same end results, it doesn't mean we're on the same team by any means. You know.
We've always known that. We're not pretending.
So I'm not. I understand that you've got your schedule, you've got your deadlines, you've got things you've got to get done. But honestly, that's of no concern to me. If we can continue to work together and make stuff happen, great. If not, you know, if it's not going the way you want it to, or you're not getting your information fast enough, then do what you got to do. You know, but I already know you'll be back. So.
Well, maybe we've been too honest with you guys, I guess. I mean, we know we know that we're not on the same team. Well, yeah, because if you're saying, I think what you're saying is you're kind of challenging us, and I didn't think that's where we were in our discussion.
No, I'm not challenging you. I'm just saying I know you've got your agenda, what you need to get done, and what you need to. You have to have something to show for it, for your work on this.
Well, but it's sort of funny because we thought it was your agenda that was kind of driving this, of wanting to move things quickly and wanting to keep the media on, and that's why we've been working on kind of your agenda. That's why I'm like, wait a second, this is what Israel wanted.
No, you're right. I mean, it's so far it has gone according to my agenda as much as it can. The issue is there's still a lot of time that's going to pass before I get the things I want. If I give up all my cards right away, and then that's it. You know, I have no control over what happens a month from now or 6 months from now.
I guess I would respectfully disagree with that, because to the extent that we demonstrate that the plan that we came up with collectively a month ago is working, then that is going to help you get the things that you want. And at this point, if we've only really been able to demonstrate that half of the plan is working, and frankly, that's our half. We did everything that we agreed to do, and you haven't done what you agreed to do.
First of all, I didn't agree to do anything today. I already told you that. So, I told you I've got different agenda now than when we came up with that plan because of things that happened between then and now. So, fine. I changed the rules. Shame on me. but that doesn't really change the bottom line. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna at least find out what my options are, and that hasn't happened yet. So, you know, I understand it put a hitch in the schedule, but you know, and that's not the only issue right now. There are some other, you know, other things that we can't talk about, and that's an issue with me too. And I know that you know, there's a lot of debate that these things aren't connected, but to a certain extent, for me and what happens to me in the end, they are pretty closely connected. So.
The tone changes in June. The prosecutor stops circling around the problem and asks for the smallest possible step, one name. Watch how the room narrows to that single word.
Respond to one of the something you said earlier about, hey, at the last minute, this idea that seems that you're interested in, that at the last minute you could just tell us everything, right? And just at the end of all of this with the couriers, you could just tell us everything. So let's use the courier case in Vermont. You know, as we just explained, we have option A and B. We're looking at it that way. A is we, you know, get information. We keep Vermont on board. We get some more information, not everything, but we get some more information to Vermont on board, and we keep moving forward on a free-time basis.
Right.
With the couriers. Option B, we all kind of felt was, you know, we lose control of Vermont because we don't get anything about New York. Vermont moves forward, and you know, the U.S. Attorney's Office down there in Vermont says, look, he's not cooperating, we're going to charge him federally. The state says, he's not cooperating, we're going to charge him state-wise. That's kind of what could happen on Plan B, right?
Yeah.
I mean, are you with me so far?
I take your word for it, yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, if you think that I'm telling you something like that, that's what I believe are two possible options here with the couriers. The moving forward option, or the, you know, the stalling out option, which Vermont moves forward federally and state. Now, the state of Vermont does not even have a death penalty, but they have an interest, as you can tell from their office. But for your cooperation and are working with them, the state of Vermont would want to charge you, right?
Right.
So the state of Vermont charges you. It's going to be a lengthy process to go forward with. You know? So that's why I mean option B is a lengthy process, and they're not. No one's going to agree. Either the U.S. Attorney's Office in Vermont or the Vermont state prosecutors are not going to agree to any kind of a situation where they say, hey, great, we're going to move things along quickly and get Israel a sentence. You know, whether he wants the death penalty, whether he wants life in prison, whatever, we're going to go ahead and move forward with that, and with the hope that at the last minute he's going to give us all this information, right? But they're just not going to have anything, that kind of agreement. So I just wanted you to know my thoughts on that. I don't speak for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Vermont. I don't speak for the state prosecutors on that issue, but you know, I think the reality is they're not going to just move things forward quickly there with the promise. We had the other promise from you that they'll learn everything eventually. They're going to want that first, right? You know,
right.
Like basic negotiating things. So that, does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, the part you left out is that with option A is that if I continue to give them information, they can still do whatever they want as far as charging.
Look,
They don't have to give me their word on anything. I know
they don't, but they have, and they've given me their word. And so I think what you said was very insightful. Like, well, if you don't want to move things quickly, but you don't want them to be really slow, the quickly is, in my opinion, you tell us. Right. The slow is, he tells nothing. What you said at the very end when we took a break was, hey, if I have to give you a little bit, you step along the way to keep things moving. That's in the middle. Things will move, they won't move as quickly, they won't move as slowly, but they'll move. So I'm asking you then today to give us the name of the person in New York has a little something. It's, you know, half a card, you can rip it in half, you give us the name, we move things forward.
No, it's not half a card, it's pretty, no.
Well, you give us the name today, I think we'll be back here next week, and you won't have heard peep of that. Nobody will have heard about it.
Well,
And it keeps things moving. You know, we'll be sitting here next week. You won't even heard a thing. We'll sit the week after. You won't have heard a thing about it. okay, because we're going to live up to our living, because that's our commitment to keep that, to follow your goals. Here's what can happen today. You give me the name, I write it down. I don't ask you any more questions. We all have some lunch, talk about whatever you want to talk about. You have a cigar, we can talk about the weather, what's going on in Anchorage, whatever. I'll just write down the name, we have lunch, you have a cigar.
Well, I mean, it sounds tempting, but no, I'm not giving a name. I'm not giving any names until I find out what my options are.
But that's fine. You do what you need to do. We'll see if it changes next week. I think we'll be in some position next week where we are today. And so, fine.
The standoff does not end there. Later in the same June interview, investigators press the same problem from another angle. If he will not give them one name privately, the public process he says he wants to avoid becomes harder to stop. Now listen to how he describes the trap he built for himself.
You're just looking to hide. Are you looking to hide the information? Is that what I'm getting there? Yeah. You're looking to hide it.
Well, I'll get it to you, especially if there's something in it for me, but it'd be better if my name wasn't attached to it. From here till eternity or whatever.
Well, we told you before, we don't have a problem with that. We've demonstrated repeatedly that we have the ability to greatly influence that.
Right. No, I for now, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, I think we can keep. I think I could probably tell you everything today, and since being the case that it is, I'm sure we could probably keep stuff under wraps for a year, 2 years, whatever. I'm not worried about that.
So then there you go. What's the deal?
I'm worried about after that. Eventually, my name is going to be attached to it. So if there's a way that I can protect myself from that and still get you guys what you need, then I'm going to do it. I don't need to be punished for these other things that I haven't talked to you about yet, because all these others, they can't prosecute a dead man, so it's like, what?
Right, but do you think anyone's going to you think Vermont charges you for the couriers, do you think they're really going to give you the death penalty knowing that there's more things out there? Do you think they're going to say,
right,
so
see, I know.
You're in a catch-22, my friend. You're in a catch-22, and we're offering you, what is, I think, your best bet. That's your call, buddy, but, you're in a catch-22 because Vermont U.S. Attorney's Office, Vermont State isn't going to rush forward and give you what you want, knowing that there's more information.
Right, they can't give me what I want anyway.
Well, they could charge you federally in Vermont with the carjacking resulting in the couriers. They haven't done that because they've trusted us that we're coordinated. They're not going to rush out there and give you some sentence, whatever it may be, while there's still information out there about unsolved crime. We're offering what I think, so that's your catch-22. I wanted to make sure you understood that, right?
No, I know that.
And we're trying to work on the timing, the control of the media, you control how the story comes out. This is your opportunity. You control the story, you control the timing, you control the media. And by timing, I mean moving it quickly. The other alternative B is takes forever, possibly. You don't control any of the rest of the stuff. You may be right, they never get it, but then they're not going to just move forward knowing with the unknown. The middle ground, I think, is what you suggested at the end. You give me a name, I write it down, you have lunch and a cigar, and you all meet in whenever you want to meet again. And you're not going to hear anything about it between now and then.
By late July, the discussion moves into the legal mechanics. The question is no longer just what he will say, it is what happens if those details enter a public courtroom. The conversation becomes almost technical, but the emotional pressure is simple. He wants a certain end, while also trying to keep the worst details sealed. The prosecutor is trying to turn that contradiction into a global deal.
I agree. I do think
Months later, the tone is different. The earlier confidence is weaker. He is still trying to control information, but he is also admitting that the system is larger than the room.
Well, it was kind of, okay. I'm too lazy to even dig a hole for that one. Just piled rocks on top of it.
Are you planning on going back for that?
Yeah, this summer. That would have been a good trip. I still can't get over the disappeared house in Vermont thing.
You have big plans for this summer back there?
Well, I was going to go back there. I The picture driving up, looking everywhere for that farmhouse and not being able to find it.
To burn it down.
Yeah, that would have been funny. But whatever, you guys did that for me.
Speaking of Vermont,
Yeah, speaking of Vermont, we were talking to Vermont on Monday. And they want to know what's going on. And they are interested in filing charges as they have been all along.
What,
So,
federal?
You know,
You don't know?
no, I mean, we talked to both the state and federal prosecutors on Monday. And we want to know what we should tell them from their perspective.
Well, it's a little hard to talk about my general overall perspective right now, for obvious reasons, so.
Well, just tell us your perspective. I understand that, and we're not going to do that, but we are interested in your perspective on the Courier murder, because that's what they're interested in, right? And
they're also interested in, your cooperation on other crimes and where that stands and whether you intend to follow through on some of that. So that's the kind of thing, that they're looking for from us.
Well, like I said all along, my cooperation on other crimes is dependent on what's going on with crimes that I'm already charged with. And I said that all along. As far as really an interesting legal process, I guess you could say.
well, you've known, and we've talked about this quite a bit, that Vermont is willing to be patient if they think that there's forward momentum on solving other crimes, And I know that you don't care about that from the perspective of families of other victims, but Vermont does, and so there's a way to meet in the middle by giving something that they can then have. They don't need to know the details of it, but they need to know we've gotten something else so that they can continue to hold on.
I just don't understand why, even from a legal perspective, I don't understand what the hurry is or what their issue is as to why they want to file additional charges, when I'm clearly already charged with substantial ones.
Well, in Vermont, you've got state prosecutors who right now have an unsolved, according to the public, unsolved murder of the Courier. Right? So the law enforcement is under a lot of pressure.
They get calls from the press that they're telling us every week, those different state prosecutors are electing, so I think they probably feel more of an obligation to inform the public than people who are appointed as lifetime prosecutors.
Right. But since they called off the search for the bodies, as far as the public knows, they can't even definitively say that it was a homicide. I know they already told everybody it was.
They know that. Vermont knows that.
They know, right, they know.
So Vermont, let's just be a really realistic approach to it. The state prosecutor in Vermont, you want to come out and say, hey, here are the charges we've got. We've got the guy, case solved. That's what you want to do.
Right.
So you need to give them a reason.
The agents answer with the most practical argument in the whole interview. If he stops giving useful information, they cannot hold back the normal investigative playbook.
And so my position on it at this point is you're asking for more information, and I am still waiting to see what happens with the information I've already given. So essentially, what can happen is, it becomes a one-way street until I see what comes out the other end on some of these other issues.
Well, we're also looking at from what you expressed earlier, the time frame. You all said, are we going to be sitting here a year from now? And this was going back 4 months or 5 months. So we're getting a lot closer, I think, to the year from now because we've also talked about the way that Vermont initially came out. We were all kind of hadn't fully prepared for what could happen in Vermont, right? You said it, we've said it. And we've learned things from how we dealt with Vermont that would not need to be repeated in other jurisdictions. So we have information about if it's in another jurisdiction. We can approach them without even giving them any details.
I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like there's been several, I don't want to say breach of trust, because I know we don't trust each other, but based on initial things that were said verbally. Nothing in writing. I know we didn't have agreements hard and fast. I just feel like, especially with the last search warrants that were executed, it was done in a way that was clearly contrary to what my initial intentions were for the way this whole thing would play out. And, I hear what you're saying as far as it has to be done, but what I'm doubtful about is the motivation for doing it. Your motivation, or the FBI, whoever sanctioned that, their motivation for doing it in the way that they did it.
Well, hey, like you said, you're going to be suspicious of us, we're going to be suspicious of you, but frankly, when we sat down in this room, everyone here is trying to play straight with you. And I think if you understand the reality of the situation, and you're a pretty reality-based guy, you understand how the world works, is once you stop telling us significant information about other crimes, then these guys couldn't control what the rest of the FBI is going to do. And the playbook says, if you've got a serial killer, you're going to have to go through that house, right, with a fine-tooth comb. Even though they can say, hey, Israel's told us there's nothing there. Well, they're going to do it. And the only way to hold that off is to say, well, look, he's cooperating, he's giving us information. But when you stop, then there's going to be consequences. We're trying to be as reality-based about this thing. We've always given you what we thought was actually going to happen in the real world. And it's the same thing from Vermont. If we had more information in Vermont, maybe Vermont would have been a whole lot more quiet and cooperative. As it is, they've been really cooperative, right? They haven't filed any charges, but how long can we hold on to them without another piece of information? So,
you're a reasonable person. Don't you think it? Use somebody else for an example. Like this type of case, someone who's not cooperating and not talking with law enforcement. Don't you think that if this would have been viral across the United States, every place you've ever been? Don't you think that? If you hadn't been talking to us, we don't have any other choice but to try to do it on our own and use all the information that we've put together about you and your whereabouts and put it out to those communities for help. And we haven't done that because you've been talking with us.
Even the stuff that you've done, you guys did, I think, a pretty good job, even on the search warrants. There were statements in the press that were looking for evidence of other crimes. No one stood in front of a camera and did that. The cameras, may have shown up, but no one said a word. In hopes of still moving forward on this.
And you only be so discreet about doing something on like a street that's 6 houses long.
Well, especially if you block it off.
Yeah, we were trying to prevent people who we didn't want there to getting into that, but you can't stop.
I'm just saying, you've got to go by your playbook, but I refuse to accept that there weren't ways you can have been more discreet or more That's just my impression. I have nothing to go on other than what I see and my gut feeling on stuff at this point, because I feel like I get the trickle down from all parties involved. So, that may or may not be the case, but that's just where I feel like I'm at right now.
Right, we can't change your feeling, but we've always come into this room trying to give you the straight scoop. And we try to deal with you that way because we know that you're a smart guy and you know how the world works. And what I'm sensing, what you're telling me now is you're trying to look at us as if we've been manipulating you somehow.
No, I don't think anyone in this room has been manipulating. That's not my concern right now. My concern, you're asking for more information. You talk about it going viral. If I give you any more information and it somehow gets out and it gets in the paper again, one more snippet of information could push the whole thing over the edge, and then for the time being, as many times as it's been in the paper and there's still all this speculation, it hasn't really taken off.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I know it's because you haven't been giving official statements that you could, which I do appreciate that aspect of it. What I'm saying is, until I know what's going to happen with certain current issues, my big concern is that another rumor gets out. It doesn't have to come from you, just another rumor from somebody, I don't know. And then, I'm no longer in touch with all the different, I don't even know what's being said in the media or what has been said about the stories. I see little snippets here and there, but that's my concern, is that, if something else were to get out, and especially in a different area or something, then, and now there's the whole Nia Bay aspect of it now too. Like my kids live in Nia Bay now, and gossip is the town pastime. So that's my concern right now. Is it doesn't even have to be. I feel like at this point it wouldn't even have to be something that was confirmed. It could just be a rumor. And
well, you're not going to get rumors coming out from us, and you haven't so far. The stuff that's come out is when when the people outside of this room feel like that you're not being forthcoming.
Right.
And we can be advocates for how we want to pursue this case, but we need something. We need material. We need currency. We need something to advocate with. And that's what
That is why even a small clue matters. A knife, a place, or a single detail can buy time with bosses and prosecutors. For the investigators, tiny pieces can point toward victims who still have no answer.
The clue, and it's just something that gives us credibility that we can report, even though maybe this is just sort of fiction. Give us New York, New Jersey. All right, well, you go to New Jersey, or something other thing that we can kind of report back that allows us a little bit of credibility with the people that we have to deal with.
Yeah, something.
Did you find any knives in New York or in the boat? Bowling knives. About 6 inches long.
I don't know. I think there might have been in the boat. You told us you thought there was knives in the boat, right?
There's 2 knives that were not in Kimberly's house, and I don't know where they were. I thought they were in that bucket. I thought that they were. I may have left one in New York. I thought there might have been one in the boat. Just knives that I had from a long time ago. But I haven't seen them in any of the pictures, so I don't think that's Ted or
I can find out about the boat. I don't think there was a knife on the boat. I don't remember a knife being in the bucket though. In the photos.
The knives are well, there was a folding knife.
So why is that knife?
Well, it's a folding knife, so I don't know. You took it apart, you might.
Would there be blood on the knife?
Well, there might not on it, but maybe inside.
the kind that has the handles are actually bolted or screwed to it or something. It's not a solid piece, nothing you could disassemble it in some manner.
Yeah, like riveted.
Would the blood be from a long time ago or just the neck?
No, the blood's not from a long time ago, but I haven't carried it for a while, so I can't remember when I left it.
Any other places where it might be?
No, I don't.
What was in the boat, it was a long time ago.
Well,
2005.
right. Yeah, I mean, they're both knives that I got before that.
And would those be associated with the Washington murder?
Yeah.
On those lines, I'm waiting for Ted to respond.
That's the guy that was met with one
Yeah.
time. He's one to take a closer.
From Ted, on those lines. We talked to someone out at the lab, and we were talking about, when the time comes when you decide that you want to give additional information so that we're prepared on what we need to do to be able to respond quickly. We asked about, what are the chances of if there is someone that is, if there's a body at the bottom of the lake, what are the chances of that body still being intact 7 years later, or that kind of thing? What are we going to be looking for, and what do we need to have in place in order to be able to find that? And one of the things that they said, which might be of interest to you, is depending on how the body was put down there, it's possible that the body is actually very intact. If the body was just tied to something and dropped it to the bottom of the lake, there's definitely still going to be long bones and that kind of stuff. You won't have finger bones and that kind of stuff. There'll be femurs and long bones and that kind of thing. If the body was contained in something, even a bag of some sort, it's very possible that the body can still be intact, depending on the depth of the lake. All of that determines the kind of equipment that we would need in order to locate the body. And so, obviously not asking for details about where and who and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the Washington bodies, were they contained in something, or were they just tied to the milk jugs? I mean, is it something where we might possibly actually still get it intact?
No.
No. And that's helpful for them to know, because that's a whole different type of search that it would have to be then in different types of equipment. I'm just going to call him. We'll step out and have a call.
Yep.
He's not answering the special.
And do you, I guess, because I'm kind of getting a different vibe now, do you still envision in the future us working together to the point where we can get this information?
Yeah, I don't see how we're going to get anything else done. I just,
I know you're waiting for, whatever you're waiting for to find out. But
yeah, I have concerns with current issues, but, I can definitely foresee down the road there's going to be a lot more that can be resolved.
And that's good.
I'm going about it in a different manner.
Well, but that's good information, because we'll be able to pass that on. And
Yeah.
You're still open and you're still...
No, I haven't. My outlook on this, as far as the ultimate end result, hasn't really changed. It's just has more to do with timelines, expectations, I guess.
But, and the balancing game that we're talking about doing is we're just trying to keep everybody happy the best we can till we get to that point. And that's kind of a difficult balancing act for us.
Right. And it sounds like you're holding on to some of this stuff to trade in for something you might need later.
True.
Well, yeah, because we don't have much else to.
Well, that's the thing, is, this whole clue idea, might give us a little short-term solution to kind of keep this thing moving the way we want it to move. And maybe even gets you something in the short term, if you're thinking about, like, I don't know, you come, you give a clue, and, you want lunch or something like that. I mean, that's something that can be worked out.
Ooh, you need a candy bar.
I know, that's what I think, I don't know if you feel guilty about it, but.
If you had a cigar, you'd probably pass out if you had a cigar right now.
But I mean, the notion of this whole idea is, hey, you come over, we keep things going, at least on a smaller scale. You're not giving up anything in terms of trading value, but you're giving us credibility with other people we have to deal with. You're not giving us any useful information really, other than, all right, well, we got, a night in Washington. It's not like we're going to solve the clue game on that, like Professor Plum in the library and that kind of thing. But it gives us a little bit of, stuff to go back with people and buy time and buy what we need to buy. And, in the short term, if you have short-term needs that you think, it might be fun to have sushi. That's something that can be arranged. We're not talking about, huge clues here.
What did you guys find in the boat? Was there anything left?
I thought we went over
Yeah.
technically.
I saw the list.
There was no knife. Oh, you mean in terms of the lab?
Yeah.
It has not, everything has not gone to, finished up at DNA yet. So it's possible that there were still, there were some areas that did test positive for blood, just when they do like the first, they call it the presumptive test, when the people that were searching it. So those things went into the lab, and some of those things were like the screws for holding the carpeting in and that kind of thing. Those have not come back yet from DNA. The little, there were some little fragments that they thought might have been bone fragment, was not bone, did not test positive for bone. That one's come back. Yeah, they didn't want to, we didn't ask what it was, but it wasn't bone. There's some hair that is not yours. But the way they figure out hair.
I was mostly curious if they found any blood.
Yeah, there
I
was.
wasn't sure how long, because it's been sitting there in the rain for so long. I was curious if there was. I mean, I know there was when I parked it.
Yeah, there was. We haven't heard anything back about it, and then they need something to clear away.
Right.
So there's no knife.
No knife. There was no knife in the boat.
It may have been. I don't know what happened to that knife. It was a Tonto, cold steel Tonto.
How big? Like, was it just...
It had it was a 4.5 inch folding blade. And I think I bought it at Walmart.
Do you remember what color it was?
It looks very similar to the one that I had on me when I was arrested. Just a different blade style. Same company and everything, I think.
If I'm correct about that, that was the murder weapon for one of the Washington murders.
Well, it wasn't involved.
It was involved.
I think we talked about before when we were asking about federal jurisdiction about guns.
Yeah.
Were any of either of those victims shot? Strangled.
We'll get the whole story eventually.
Right, which is going to get part so that we can move.
No, the only person I ever shot was Bill Curry.
Everybody else was strangled. Or I don't want to have the wrong impression. So everybody else was strangled or lived through something else.
Oh, one of the Washington things that was, it's just, no, it wasn't strangled. I hit somebody in the head, so.
Did you mean to kill them or they died? Is there a struggle and you hit them and they died, or did you mean to kill them?
No, I wasn't trying to kill him, I just took him out of action.
I think we read that in one of those letters with the male and the female couple.
Yeah. Sort of. Rich mentioned that they gave you all that stuff. I should have asked them to give me copies so I know which ones you have.
We could go over that together and
You could fill in the blanks
at some point in time. Well, we know in
I
Washington.
didn't realize they were allowed to take stuff out of my folder, but I wasn't naming it. That was pretty good.
Well, we know from that there was a couple in Washington State, and exactly a couple. We read that in the. Are those the same couple from that you took to the boat and come to the lake? Or are there others?
And they went in that hole.
No.
Yeah. They were buried.
Yeah, that was
That was a long time ago. Right after the military, is that right after the military? You told me once right after the military. After you got out of the military.
moved before I got the boat.
And you had told us one time that, it wasn't long when you got out of the military that you killed somebody, and it was that sort of feeling that you needed to do something that was hard to resist.
Is it fair to say that we're looking at a lot more around the Washington area than not? Just the two in Washington?
No, there's a couple. There's a couple in Washington, and then the two. Is that right?
Yeah.
So if we can't find this knife, it's unfortunate that doesn't give us much to go on.
I know we had some knives. I don't know what all we had.
I think I got something Kimberly.
Is it possible it was that Kimberly?
I don't think so. I haven't seen it for.
Could be in a different Washington cache.
No.
This is why these interviews still matter. They are not a clean confession scene. They are a record of investigators trying to convert control, ego, fear, and self-interest into usable answers. After the interviews, the case did not reach a trial verdict. Keyes died in custody on December 2, 2012. The FBI later released these recordings and asked the public for information connected to his travel because some questions remained unresolved.